so I'm going to open our meeting and advise everyone that the audio and video of the meeting is being recorded and live streamed. I note that all elected members are present, either in the chamber or Alderman Sexton's on Zoom. So there's no apologies, no leave of absence. I'd like to start by acknowledgement to country. In recognition of the deep history and culture of this place, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which the city of Hobart was built and pay my respects to the contemporary Aboriginal community, the Palawa people of Tasmania, who have survived invasion and dispossession and continue to maintain their identity, culture and rights. The minutes of our last meeting was the 10th of October. Deputy Mayor.
It says true and correct, Lord Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Sherlock. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Can say no. It's carried unanimously. Are there any items to be transferred? There being none, we'll move on to communications from the Chair, and I would like to provide a farewell to Alderman Dr. Peter Sexton. As tonight marks his last council meeting as an elected member, I'd like to take the opportunity to honour and farewell Alderman Dr. Peter Sexton. Alderman Sexton was elected to the council on the 16th of April in the last century, 1999. Since then, he has served as an elected member for over 23 years across more than 5 terms of the council, including as Deputy Lord Mayor from April to November 2018. A former chairman of the Community, Culture and Events Committee, Alderman Sexton has also served on 8 other council committees throughout his years. He was also on a number of special committees, such as the trustees of the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery, that tied in wonderfully with his involvement and interest in heritage protection and the arts. Alderman Sexton was involved in many projects and proposals during his time. He was one of the elected members who worked hard to bring AFL matches to Hobart and was involved in the opening of the underground of the town hall, which is something he'd been wanting to do for more than a decade. He's also always been a very strong advocate for the residents of Battery Point and in particular their heritage interests. I'm sure we can all agree that the last few years working as a frontline worker in general practice, as well as serving as an elected member, would have been a huge undertaking for Alderman Sexton, and we appreciate the time and the effort he's been able to dedicate to his role. Although Alderman Sexton will no longer be an elected member of the Hobart City Council, I've no doubt that he'll continue to serve in the community in many other ways. On behalf of the City and other elected members, thank you, Alderman Sexton, and I wish you all the best for your future endeavours and the additional time that you'll have to spend with your family, including your grandchildren. Thank you. Do you want to say anything at all? You're on mute. Sorry, Alderman Sexton. You're on mute.
Thank you very much for the kind words. It's obviously 23 years is a long time, and at times, although I suppose it could be argued that there have been issues and difficulties and occasionally torrid times, it's overall been a pleasure, of course, and a great honour to serve on the Hobart City Council. And as we can see, with 44 candidates in this current election, a very large number of people seek that honour, so it's been a great privilege for me to be able to do it for so long. I do believe, however, that after 23 years it is time for me to stand down, which is what I have done, to allow fresh blood onto council, and also to allow myself to enjoy a little bit more of the time with my granddaughters who are based in Melbourne, and therefore will require me to travel a little bit more than I would otherwise do. So thank you again, Lord Mayor, and thank you to all my colleagues for working with me on various projects over the years, and I wish everybody all the best.
Thank you. Lovely. So we'll move on now to notification of council workshops. There have been none. Public question time. Are there any questions? There's no questions on notice.
No, Lord Mayor.
Is there a public question from the floor? Is that a question? You'll need to come forward and just say your name and your question.
My name is Zila Dutta-Nielsen, and my address is 356 Macquarie Street, South Hobart. Under the provisions of Section 31 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures, my questions are addressed to Alderman Jeff Briscoe. On 10th October 2022, the Mercury article reported the statement you posted on your running mate Louise Elliott's Facebook page, in which you stated, and I quote, that Dutta and Fox, both candidates, continued to be paid elected members' allowance during the state elections, and the other two candidates did not. Could you please provide answers to the following 5 questions? Firstly, where, when, and from whom did you get this information that Councillor Dutta and Councillor Fox continued to be paid elected members' allowance? And what was your reason for posting this false information during the election campaign period? Shall I continue with the questions?
I think it's probably best to do them all at once. Yeah.
Yep, sure. Question 2. Is it true that you failed as an elected member to take all reasonable steps and precautions to verify the information which you posted on Facebook and which had the effect of undermining, discrediting and defaming Councillor Dutta and Councillor Fox in the public domain? Question 3. Is it reasonable to assert that you were aware of and mindful of the fact that there is no council policy that required Councillor Dutta and Councillor Fox to forego their council allowance, and that it was not inappropriate for them to receive the allowance during that period? Question 4. Is it true that once you realised the error in your Facebook post, you then decided to remove the comment? But before doing so, you saw and was in possession of the knowledge that many other people had already seen and read your comments and responded to it. Final question. Will you unreservedly apologise to Councillor Dutta for causing directly or indirectly any adverse conclusion against him by any person? If not, then why not? Thank you.
Alderman Briscoe, would you like to take that
take it on notice, thank you.
Alderman Briscoe's taken that one on notice. Thank you for your question. So we also have a response to a previous public question. Would you like to move that, Deputy? Seconded by Councillor Sherlock. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Petitions, I think we have some or one.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We actually have 2 petitions this evening, one submitted by Ryan Passelt from West Hobart. The subject matter is as follows. Mount Nelson has inferior pedestrian infrastructure. This petition seeks upgrades to the suburb's footpaths and installation of crossing. The action sought by the petitioner is, as I've just said, install a pedestrian crossing across Nelson Road in the proximity of Mount Nelson. Commence a planned infrastructure program with the aim of building a continuous footpath separated from the road along a Linda Grove and Nelson Road between Hobart College and the Mount Nelson signal station. And the total number of signatories, Lord Mayor, to this are 257. The second petition is from Paul Ackerley, also from West Hobart. The subject matter states that damaging and messy trees in Franklin Street, West Hobart, need to be removed and replaced with more suitable trees. And the total number of signatories to this, Lord Mayor, are 7. Thank you.
Lord Mayor, I move that those be sent to the appropriate committee for further consideration.
Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Alderman Baracus. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Say no. Carried unanimously. There's no supplementary items. Item 8 is indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest. Are there any elected members who wish to indicate an interest in any item appearing on the council agenda? There being none, We will now move on to the City Planning Committee. I'll invite Deputy Lord Mayor to open item 9.1.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. This is for this very building. It's adjacent road reserve, partial demolition, alterations and signage. So I'll move that.
Second by Councillor Harvey.
So, Lord Mayor, this is, I hope I've got the right one, planning approval sought for the demolition of the existing traffic island and sign at the entry to the parking deck, and putting in a gantry and effectively a U-beam at the back of Town Hall. It received no representations and needs to be considered under the performance criteria Schedule 1, conservation of cultural heritage values, Schedule 4, signs. The committee accepted the officer's report that this was a sensible move with limited heritage impact, and the sign is quite small. It's really to protect the building infrastructure to stop larger trucks coming into and underneath the parking deck. So, relatively straightforward application here. So I move that for recommendation for approval.
Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 9.2, 1 Queen's Walk.
Yes,
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor, I'll move this application.
Second by Councillor Dutta.
So from the rather small application to quite a significant application, so this is for 150 multiple dwellings, which consists of 85 existing and 65 new at 1 Queen's Walk. It includes car parking, landscaping including tree removal and associated works. This is a significant application, Lord Mayor, and development of public housing at 1 Queen's Walk as part of where there are other multiple dwellings. So you would be aware of those on the left-hand side of the Brooker Highway in the Cornelian Bay area. This application is really looking at increasing the number of dwellings under what is Housing Tasmania, and under their care, although it's the Tasmanian Community Choices Tasmania, who are responsible for administering and looking after these dwellings. So there are two towers that would be built in this area, and so they're designed to blend in with the other towers that are in this vicinity. There were 3 representations concerned in relation to the quality of the development and some things really in relation to the current support services and how that could be improved. That's outside of the planning considerations that we have. But just to give you a bit more of an indication, so this will also look at substantial landscaping proposed to refresh the site. There's a car park on the other side of Queen's Walk, which is near the rugby field, which will be more formalised, and that will have a bit of a flow on parking for Queen's Walk, as well as useful parking for other users, and particularly the sports field when that's on. There'll be motorcycle and bicycle parking, and there's practical facilities such as clotheslines and waste bin storage as part of this. So it was felt by committee that this was a really good addition to public housing, and certainly met the criteria and the performance criteria of the conditions, such as in a residential zone, recreation zone, and the attenuation being so close to the cemetery as well. So it was a unanimous decision, recommendation for approval from committee.
Yes, Chair. Yes, I'm going to support this. The concerns of the residents are relevant, and usually when we address these sorts of concerns, we actually do it as advice. And some of the concerns of the residents were that things like are concerned about the overall standard of management of the existing complex, lack of consideration of current occupants and how the proposal may make these issues worse. The residents have not been adequately consulted or listened to for the preparation of the proposed development. Now, it is a social housing proposal. It is quite significant, adding 2 extra towers, and everyone agrees that we should do that. I'm suggesting that we have an advice that during the preliminary stages before this build happens, that further consultation with the current residents happen. Advice. So it's essentially something we often do when there are concerns with management. It's not directly planning, but it's advice. The applicant could choose to ignore it. But I move an amendment that further consultation with the residents happen prior to the construction as advice.
Okay, so that's we'd need a seconder for that amendment. Alderman Thomas and Alderman Briscoe, you're talking about the residents of the existing towers?
Yes. There's quite a, if you look, sorry, could I just explain a little bit more? If you look at the objections, they are concerns from existing residents.
Further discussion?
Thanks, Lord
Alderman
Mayor.
Harvey.
Look, I will support the amendment, but can I ask for, rather than consultation, can we use the word engagement? It seems, you know, a bit more appropriate.
Thank you very much. I'm happy.
Yeah. One of the discussions we did have at last night's committee meeting was around the amenity of the area, which is not directly related to the development application, but it is, you know, to some degree. And I think there's an opportunity to really improve this precinct, and I think the director took it on board as well. That, and it's also in conversation with the proponents as well to look at how we, over time, improve the footpaths, improve the bike facilities to make a link towards the cycle, the intercity cycleway, how the bus stops get improved. There's 2 bus stops and they're not very adequate at the moment, I don't think. How the crossing the road can be made safer. So I think these are really important amenity issues for that site to make it a safe and more attractive place to live and to be able to move around without dependence on cars. So that's something that I look forward to seeing an engagement process with council and the proponents going forward.
Alderman Thomas?
Yes. Again, following on from Councillor Harvey, it's just an interesting aspect that you're going to have several hundred people living there. It's fairly a maroon site to a degree. It's attenuation, it's got the cemetery to it. There's very little local services in terms of shops, just ordinary shops for, and it's not a planning issue. You've got the kiosk at the Canadian Bay. One would hope that there is some facilities that can be provided, and obviously if someone's entrepreneurial enough, they may well decide to institute or launch something, but that is a concern at that site, that it is a total maroon site, sitting on one side of the highway, cemetery on the other, and a kiosk that I'm not sure of its opening times, but very limited range of ordinary products. So it's not our issue, but it is an issue I think that will continue to become even worse with a large number of extra people there. Something we should, I don't know whether it's a job we can do or help, but certainly it's something we should be aware of.
Further discussion? Can I just ask a question? There was, I think council made a decision about adding a footpath. There was a petition from this community and we made a decision to create a footpath. Does any of the directors remember that? I'm just wondering, will that still go ahead? Will that just be done as part of this development? Or do you want to take it on notice?
Yeah, look, I'll take it on notice. I mean, the footpath is shown on the plans, but that will be a matter for council as a road authority to incorporate that. There is, in fact, an upgrade has occurred, a partial upgrade has occurred, and we are undertaking further master plan work in the vicinity, and connection, footpath connection and cycleway connection are part of that planning exercise.
Okay, that sounds good. Deputy.
Yeah, thank you. I think just in answer to some of the concerns that Alderman Thomas has raised, I did look up and Google the sort of distance between Coles and this facility, and it's about a 3-minute car trip, and and buses go past that, and it's not that far to walk. And there are also the Lutana shops. Lord Mayor, the master plan was discussed last night, and that upgrade, because those upgrades to the cycleway and making that safer, as Councillor Harvey has said, is an important overall aspect of linking this and not making it so or seemingly isolated as well.
Okay, so I'll just put the amendment of the adding the advice. All those in favour of that say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. It's carried unanimously, and so the motion as amended for approval. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 9.31 Knopwood Street. Deputy.
Yes, so I'll move this motion for refusal.
Second.
I think Councillor Dutta had his hand up first.
Lord Mayor, you might remember that this development application came to us some time ago. I think it was in August, and so it was, I think, refused at committee and then withdrawn before it got to council. And in the time since, the applicant has come up with an amended plan, which is kind of interesting, because not always, like when we amend plans as we go and maybe take off a floor, it's seen as tantamount to refusal. However, the council, the advice from, as per the memo in the city planning agenda, says it is possible to alter an application if the decision maker, which for this application is the council, is satisfied that to do so would not be approving a substantially different application, and alters the application by imposing conditions. And the council officers felt that it was suitable with these to reconsider the application that is slightly amended. A little bit complicated, but regardless, we did hear from a couple of representatives, Mr. Rex, who lives next door, and also Mr. Edwards, representing the Battery Point Progress Association, Community Association, and they raised concerns about the impacts on neighbouring properties and the scale, regardless of it coming down to some degree. The application was going to be reduced to 24 dwellings, reduced by 2, comprising 19 dwellings of 3 bedrooms, 4 dwellings of 2 bedrooms, and 1 dwelling of 1 bedroom. And there was a change in use, which instead of a prohibited use downstairs in the commercial space, was now going to be an arts and crafts space or something along those lines. There'd be enough parking, but the sticking point, the private open space was seen to be okay. Sunlight to private open space of multiple dwellings was seen to be satisfied, but the heritage was the main issue yet again in relation to this building at a landmark position of the coming into Battery Point and coming into Sullivan's Cove. So it fails on a number of heritage grounds, and the committee was in the majority of the committee believed that this was a suitable reason for refusal.
Further discussion? Alderman Barakis.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I won't be supporting the recommendation from committee. I think this is one that should be approved. We are looking at this in the context of a site which has an already approved application. That application has some history. It did go to it was refused by this council and did go to the appeal tribunal, and it did come back with a mediated result. But the fact remains that there is a plan there approved by not this council, the previous council, and looking at the outcomes that both designs would have on the streetscape and on the area, and on immediate adjoining properties, including preachers, what's being proposed is a better outcome for the area than what's currently approved. And the same concerns around the impact on the heritage precinct are equally relevant with the application that was already approved under the same planning scheme. So I don't see how, I don't see how we would be able to avoid an identical outcome should this go to the planning tribunal. But I don't understand why we wouldn't be pushing for a result that actually has a lower impact on the neighbouring area, the surrounding area, than a previously approved application. I think if we were to approve this tonight, it would definitely objectively result in a better outcome than the approved application. And I think that's what we should be aiming for here, is a better planning outcome for a significant block. It's a block that I've sort of grew up driving up and down on my way to and from work in Salamanca. It's a very significant and very important site. And at the moment it's one that's derelict and sadly woefully underused. But one way or another, something's getting built on that site. We do have the opportunity here to choose which of those two designs gets built, and we should do the one that leads to the better planning outcome. So I won't be supporting the recommendation. I'll hope and I'll test the chamber and I'll move a foreshadowed motion. Yet last night there were conditions for approval that were available, so I'll move them, and I think this is something that should be approved. Or foreshadow them, sorry, not move.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Can I just ask, on the points raised by Alderman Barakis, what the Heritage Office's view of the 2016 mediated compromise was? Was there an acceptance of? I mean, I know we approved it, the 2016 design, but was there advice from the Heritage Officers in relation to the Sullivan's Cove planning scheme and those related matters that have been raised by Alderman Barakis?
The Sullivan's Cove planning scheme is not a relevant reference document in this instance, Chair. And the Heritage Officers at the time were satisfied that it complied with the relevant performance criteria that are still in place today. So.
Just have a question, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Zucker.
Yeah, what is the difference in height between the current application and the application that was approved by mediation?
Mr. Noy?
Yeah, look, the absolute difference is around 2.5, 2.6, but
0.5, 2.6.
yeah, it's a slightly different roof form that reduces the overall bulk further.
2016 one.
Yeah. Lord Mayor, 2.6 metres is just under, well, it's about a storey. And we're refusing it on heritage grounds. Unbelievable. Does anyone drive past that site on a regular basis? I do. It's the most ugliest corner we have in Salamanca. We're going to refuse a building that we approved in 2016 because it's 2.6 metres higher under heritage grounds, please. I'm glad this is the last council meeting for this council. I'll be supporting it, approval, because I can see this coming back to mediation for the next council once it goes to tribunal. Let's get real.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Dutta?
I have a question, Lord Mayor, through you. If this goes to the tribunal, can this be defended on heritage grounds?
Mr. Noy?
Yes, Chair, clearly that's the recommendation of the officers, and the officers will be happily defend that position if council makes that decision to support it.
All right.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to make a few points with regards to this particular application. And the first point is that the staff have recommended to us that we refuse it. Now, and they're based on 4 or 5 grounds, on their heritage grounds. Now, many times we come here in this chamber and hear that we should listen to the qualified advice. And for me, this qualified advice based on heritage ground is very, very important. And therefore, I see substance in defending this decision and recommendation made by staff to us. Secondly, not only that, the other point I note in here is that the Urban Design Advisory Panel did not support it. And for me, again, they are qualified in that particular area to make recommendations. The third point I also observe here is this, that the representatives yesterday presented some very strong and convincing grounds. Now, they presented quite a number of points in summary, and I think it's very, very strong arguments presented to us. And we need to listen, as we say, to the representatives when they make their presentations. And also the applicant was represented and made the representation as well. So on that basis, I think, having heard the arguments and evidence from the representatives, the planning committee finally, point number 4, heard both sides of the story, and on the majority, living in a democratic country, we decide, and the majority decided that we refuse this. On those 4 points, I will once again support the council, hopefully, that we refuse this application. Thank you.
Any summing up, Deputy? No. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no.
Aye.
Show of hands. All those in favour.
Councillor Harvey, Councillor Dutta, Councillor Sherlock, Alderman Thomas, Alderman Briscoe, Deputy Lord Mayor and the Lord Mayor.
And against?
Alderman Zuko, Alderman Sexton, Councillor Coates, Councillor Fox and Alderman Barakas. Mayor, 7 votes to 5.
Okay, we're moving on now to item 9.4, 31 Swanston Street.
Yes, this application, Lord Mayor, is for partial demolition, alterations, extension and 7 multiple dwellings, 1 existing, 6 new. I'll move that.
Seconded by Alderman Barakas.
Lord Mayor, this is an internal block, if you like, which has 1 house on it, and there is suggested that there are 6 2-storey semi-detached townhouses on this property. Specifically, it's demolition of the existing garage, outbuilding landscape features and removal of vegetation, construction of 6 new 2-storey townhouses.
So is it 7, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, there's 1 existing.
Oh, I see, sorry.
Yep. And each townhouse will have an upper floor balcony and dedicated private open space at ground level. There's enough parking, which was of concern to representatives. Provision of 1 visitor car parking space, installation of new driveway and manoeuvring areas, stormwater detention tank, and construction of a new 2-car garage for the existing dwelling. So it is considered and relies on the performance criteria in a residential zone, parking and access, as the number of parking spaces, and stormwater management code. So I think there's one car space short. But overall, the recommendation seems to perform. The recommendation from the officers was for approval, and I think that was supported unanimously from committee last night. We did have one of the representatives did contact us, and we've only just received a memo about this. So perhaps Ms. Abbey or could just summarise for us in relation to this, if you wouldn't mind.
Through you, Chair. The email set out a concern that the proper figure wasn't used to estimate vehicle traffic movements which will be generated by this proposal. An extract was provided from a Aust Roads guide. I've done a review of the guide that was used by the development engineers. We've used the RTA guide from 2002. That guide distinguishes between low density dwellings, medium density dwellings, which uses an estimate of 5 to 6.5 additional vehicle movements per dwelling, as opposed to 7.4 extra movements, which is used in the document which was sent by email today. So we, having reviewed that, we are comfortable that the assessment was done properly as a medium density dwelling proposal, and that the proposal complies with the acceptable solution.
So yes, so traffic and open space and overlooking were some of the concerns raised by the representatives, but on balance it was felt that this application, which was a second attempt by the applicant, and they actually withdrew it, didn't sort of just sort of change the plans as they went along. They withdrew it and made some modifications, and I think that discussion with council officers has brought back an improved application. So happy to move that, and it's a recommendation for approval subject to conditions.
Further discussion?
I've got a couple of questions, Lord Mayor. Firstly, through you to the Director, are cars able to pass on the driveway, and is that a requirement?
No.
Yeah, look, I'd have to take that on notice. All I can say is that the requirements were met, or either the acceptable solutions or performance criteria in relation to that matter. But I'd have to go back through the report to familiarise myself with that specific element.
All right, okay. And second question, is an additional 6 units on this land one too many? Could you just justify again why 6 is okay and if 5 would be a better outcome?
Well, the requirements of the density provisions under the scheme are met in relation to this proposal. So when it satisfies the performance criteria, the acceptable solutions, it meets that standard, and there's no scope to recommend or require a reduction in number of dwellings under those circumstances. So it meets the standards within the scheme.
Further discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 9.5.
Lord Mayor, this is at 1 Chew Terrace and 5 Chew Terrace in Sandy Bay, and it's for partial demolition, alterations and extension. I'll move that for approval.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Harvey.
Lord Mayor, this had no representations. It's the citing is the performance criteria that we're considering, and we're considering this. It's come to council because it's partly on council land, so the wall that would be removed is abutting the council reserve at the back of this property. Essentially, fairly straightforward. It's single-storey rear extension. I think it might be a Dorney house, mightn't it? Is it a Dorney? No, not a Dorney design. It's more contemporary than that. But it's just for a demolition and a replacement with a studio at the back of the property. So the recommendation is for approval.
Further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 9.6.
Coming to the end of this long list, Lord Mayor, and this is for 90 Melville Street, which is a extension of time for this application.
Second by Alderman Thomas.
Lord Mayor, this is at the Woodyard opposite the old K&D site, now Swish's site. And it's really just an extension of time to this application that has already been approved. And formerly it was assessed, the application was assessed under the Hobart Interim Planning Scheme, and it was discretionary under the Central Business Zone development standards for height and design, as well as the codes for potentially contaminated land. But essentially, I think there are two applications, live development applications, should we extend this for this site for multiple dwellings. So it's really, the committee felt that it was acceptable to approve this extension. So that's what the recommendation is.
Any further discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 9.7.
So this, Lord Mayor, is for partial change of use to food services, mobile food vendor. I'll move that for approval.
Seconded by Councillor Sherlock.
Lord Mayor, and just to say, I'd just again like to thank the committee who've worked really hard to, and Mr. Noy and team and council support who've provided such great assistance for our committee over the course of the past 4 years. Yes, we've got through quite a lot of development applications and approvals. So this is the final one. So this, Lord Mayor, is for partial change of use and use of a food van in Lefroy Street in a vacant, well, it's a unofficial car park, I suppose, which the site of which has a live development application for residential and commercial development in this place. But this is a food trailer which would be used on very restricted hours and has a number of conditions. But essentially the feeling was that, and the recommendation from officers was that this is a fairly straightforward application. And that it should be approved. There were only 2 representors. It was called in by an elected member, Lord Mayor.
Okay. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Now we'll move on to item 10, special report of the Chief Executive Officer. Would you like matter? Any discussion?
I'll move
Moved by Deputy, seconded by Councillor Sherlock.
And Lord Mayor, I mean, I only opened my agenda thinking that we're only looking at planning matters and a couple of other things like your code of conduct, but I see this and I was a little surprised that it would be just on this order of business this evening. Having said that, I was at the audit panel recently, so I did get a chance to read this and accept the advice in relation to this, and happy to move that.
Okay, any further discussion on the financial statements? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 11, council meeting arrangements. Deputy.
Lord Mayor, again, I'll move this.
Seconded by Councillor Sherlock.
And again, note that these are interim decisions, and I suppose the question that I have with delegation going for planning matters to Mr. Noy as director is, do we know if there's any sort of contentious or large development applications coming through in this extended caretaker period? Through you, Lord Mayor, to Mr. Noy.
Noy.
Certainly if there are, Lord Mayor, I'll be encouraging an extension of time so the new council will be able to determine them. Yeah, there is one, but we have an extension of time into December, so we'd imagine that one will be able to be determined by a planning authority meeting.
I'm glad that you've been able to use your persuasive powers, because we don't always get an extension of time. With that in mind, and being consoled that Mr. Noy will let the new council know as soon as we've done the orientation and whatever for whoever might be elected, I'm happy to move this as well.
Any discussion?
Yeah, look, Lord Mayor, nothing detrimental to the planning director or anything like that. I've got no problem with delegation. I've always supported delegation, but I've got to say, when I look at this report, it's asking to. It looks like on the 7th of November, there could be there is going to be a swearing-in ceremony for a new council. Is that correct? Through you?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And we're looking at cancelling a meeting on the 14th and turning that into the 21st. But if there could be something contentious in planning, we might call a special meeting. Why not just leave the 14th open and cancel it if required, should there be the need to have a council meeting for a planning authority decision? It's nor here nor there. It's not going to harm anybody, right? And if we don't need anything to deal with in the new council, acting as a planning authority, you don't need a planning committee to deal with planning matters. It could come directly to council as a whole to deal with. So I'm going to move an amendment that the council meeting on the 14th remain, that the first proposed council meeting, of course, will be on the 21st, but the one on the 14th could be used, if required, for dealing with planning matters if required. So I'll move that as an amendment.
Seconded by Alderman Thomas. Any discussion on the amendment?
Just to clarify, so the council meeting concurrently scheduled for Monday, November 22nd will be cancelled, with the first meeting of the new council following the ceremonial swearing in proposed for Monday. So the swearing in will be on Monday the 21st.
The 7th.
Of November?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. All right, okay, as you were, yep.
Okay, any discussion, any further discussion? So I don't know whether the CEO would like to comment on the amendment.
No.
So sorry, can you just read the amendment again, please, for us?
Through you, Lord Mayor, that the council meeting of 14th of November remain if required to deal with any planning matters.
Where does that go? So you've got, is that an amendment to item 1, is it? Is that?
I would have thought so.
Yeah, I think so, Lord Mayor, yes.
So the council approved the cancellation of the council meeting of 28th of November. And
Perhaps perhaps Lord Mayor requires a little bit of wordsmithing, but Council approved the cancellation of the council meeting for the 28th of November 22,
Oh, we don't need to mention the 14th.
Lord Mayor, I think the easiest way forward would be to say the council approved the cancellation of council meetings scheduled for 14th and 28th of November. In the event that a planning matter occurs, the meeting of the 14th will be held as originally planned, something to that effect.
Full stop, and then in the event
right.
of a significant planning matter. Okay. Does everyone, I'll put that amendment. Does everyone understand that amendment? All those in favour of the amendment say aye. Against say no. That's carried. And I'll put the substantive motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 12. Someone like to move this? Moved by, seconded by Councillor Fox. Any discussion?
I have a few questions, Lord Mayor, with regards to this matter. Question number one, through you to the responsible director. What is the average cost to the council for a code of conduct complaint?
You, Lord Mayor, I'll ask Paul Jackson, our Manager of Governance, to respond.
Mr. Jackson.
Through you, Lord Mayor, that's about $4,000.
Inflation.
You do get a discount.
I do get a discount. It's discounted. It's fine.
The question number two, how much has this cost the council for the code of conduct complaints brought against elected members by Louise Elliott, and what did it cost for this case against the Lord Mayor in May 2022?
Through you, Lord Mayor, through you, Lord Mayor, there have been 4 complaints made by Ms. Louise Elliott against elected members that have been resolved or determined, and I don't have the costs to hand of the any complaints against the Lord Mayor specifically.
So once the cost is made available to us, can that be given to us, or is it not because it's confidential?
Through you, Lord Mayor, the costs wouldn't ordinarily be provided as a matter of course, but we have had previous questions asked through questions without notice at committees where we have provided advice on those costs.
Thank you. And the final question, what has it cost the council in total for this term of the council in code of conduct complaints?
Through you, Lord Mayor, the total costs for the current term of council, which includes the costs of determination by the Code of Conduct panel and also reimbursement of legal expenses, is $109,000.
Wow. Grants budget. And our homelessness budget.
Further discussion?
Together.
Lord Mayor, I want to make some comments with regards to this. I support the rights of any member of the community to bring a code of conduct, and I think that should remain. That is very, very vital in this community. But I think having the right to bring an action comes with responsibilities. And the first basic principle of 101 university course, if one were doing, is to make an allegation. You provide evidence to substantiate it. Now, it appears that in May, a particular case was brought against you by the same person, and it was very clearly stated in the report that one particular allegation under section 28ZB1A, part 3, was vexatious. Those are not my words. Those are the words in the report by the chairperson, which means that there was this allegation made without any significant grounds, and all the other allegations were dismissed. Now with this one here, if you look at, again, the allegations made, and it appears that the words used by you, great idea, I don't really understand the argument behind this. And when I read the things in detail, it appears again that the panel has dismissed this completely. Now, then I am beginning to ask the question, is it feasible to deduce from this that some people are motivated to do this to tarnish or discredit, vilify the particular person? I don't know. That's a question I'm asking. For me, I think it's very frivolous, it's trivial, and a waste of ratepayers' money. It appears to me that we tend to make a mountain out of a molehill, and I hope that we will be more particular with these things. And the next council coming in will look at ways to deal with this in a different way than simply taking it immediately to the Code of Conduct. Thank you.
Here, here.
Councillor Fox.
Thanks, just a couple of words. I think we can all agree that the Code of Conduct process is very flawed. Obviously, it probably sounds like I'm coming from a place of a bit of a conflict of interest, being the subject of so many codes of conduct complaints during my term here. But I really do hope that the new council takes this work forward and does some lobbying through Legat or whatever is necessary to overhaul the process, because it is unfair. It is an unfair burden to put the cost onto the ratepayer for frivolous complaints. Given, this one's been dismissed, it still cost ratepayers money. I've had 7 or 8 codes of conduct. Most of them have been, I've lost count. Anyway, most of them have been dismissed, but they've still cost the ratepayers thousands and thousands of dollars because somebody's just decided that they don't like me, or they don't like you, or they don't like something that we've said. I really think that the onus needs to be on the person who's made the complaint to stand by that and cover the costs of that, and it not be a burden on the rest of the community, because this is money that is coming out of other areas of our budget. It's money that could be spent on arts, on community, on events, on homelessness, on housing, on literally anything, planting trees, anything. But it's going on these ridiculous complaints. So I really hope it's something that the new council takes forward as at least some advocacy on this, because it's such an unfortunate waste of time and money, and I'm really sorry that you've had to go through this process as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. That brings to an end the open portion of our meeting. Would someone like to move the motion to go into the closed? Deputy